What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Libraries and Weight Rooms podcast. My name is DJ Ligori, and we are on episode number 176 today. I hope everybody had a fantastic holiday and New Year's Eve. I feel like New Year's Eve, as you get older, it gets less exciting. It just kind of becomes another day that you watch fireworks at midnight. Like, that's really the only difference, I feel like. I remember as like a little kid, that was like the last piece of getting gifts. We would have like family and like cousins and aunts and uncles come over for like New Year's Eve, and I was always excited being like a little kid, like this is the last gifts that I'll be getting for the season, for the holiday season, because it was like Christmas Eve, then it was Christmas, and then it was you get a little something on New Year's Eve from our family friends who came over. And I was always so excited because it was like the last one. And the gifts were always awesome, and very, very blessed and thankful that that was a part of my childhood growing up. But now it's just kind of like, oh, it's just another day. It was in the middle of the week this year, and but it was still fun. I went to the pier here in St. Pete, watched some awesome fireworks, and spent some good time with some good quality people. And so, what I want to talk about today is something that I hit on a little bit last time. When I did the podcast in my parents' basement. So if you haven't watched the previous episode, episode number 175, it's actually filmed in my childhood weight room basement growing up. And so, right, it's not going to be perfect, but consistency will always win, right? Find a way, use what you got. And so if you haven't yet, you can give that episode a listen to. And basically the idea behind that episode was I would rather be consistent than perfect, right? The episode that I was doing was not perfect, right? I was using a $20 handheld microphone. I had really no lighting. I literally had the lighting of like the fluorescent lights that were in the basement. And I had my iPhone that was actually on a music stand that I just had propped up in front of me, right? Wasn't perfect yet. Kept the consistency of 176 weeks in a row. And so last week when I was home and when I was doing these podcasts in my parents' basement, when I was still trying to maintain my habits, I was trying to still, right, I had a lot of client meetings and meeting with young men and things like that. I thought to myself, I'm like, when you're taken out of your environment, like your standard typical environment, and you're put into this new environment for some reason, your priorities might shift. And I think when it comes to like being consistent, I've talked a lot about like you're truly going to know if you did it or not. And so I almost want to play like devil's advocate with that idea, because when I was home, there were other things that were more important to me while I was home. For example, spending time with my family, who I don't get to see very often, was like more important than me. Even though I had like a nice little office out in the sunroom, they came out, they hung out with me, right? I went out into the main common area, the Gen Pop area, hung out with them, right? Like we still interacted with each other, and I still did a fairly good job of maintaining the habits that I like to do on a daily basis, which this is one of the things that we use in the Be That Guy program. It's our consistency and discipline calendar. I did a fairly good job, at least to what I think is a pretty good job during the holidays, maintaining consistency with the things that I want to be consistent with. Yet I think when it comes to like being present and being in the moment, I think I would have really been mad at myself if I chose reading a book for 30 minutes over spending some time with my grandma. Right? I think I would have really been mad at myself if those couple cookies that my grandma made and were so excited to have me eat, if I said, no, grandma, I'm not eating any of those cookies, and she would just sit there like, oh, okay, right? I think the cost of me eating 1 to 2 of those cookies, even though I might have ate 10, was worth it, right? Because I think at the end of the day, we have to think about in this moment what's important to me right now. In those moments, spending time with my grandma was more important than the reading. And the joy that I got to see it bring my grandma when she made me these delicious treats was more important than my diet at that point in time. Now, having said that, I'm not always just going to go wild every time I go home. Yet I went home for the holidays, right? And we were in the holiday cheer, and I just kind of wanted to be with them, right? I wanted to be here. I wanted to be present in that moment with them. And so I think when our environments shift, right, and when we have certain behaviors that we like to be consistent with on a daily basis, I think it's okay to adjust your priorities in that environment, to think about like, well, what's my goal right now, right? What's important to me in this moment? And I heard Chris Williams say this once. He said something along the lines of, don't make your routines a chore, right? So like, don't make these things like a challenge each day that you have to do, right? I like the habits that I do each day because they give me something, right? They make me feel very joyful. They make me feel very grateful. They make me feel very accomplished. Makes me feel like I learned a lot of things. I feel very healthy with a lot of the habits that I do. I do them for specific reasons because they're giving me a reward every single day. Having said that, the reward that hanging out with my family or my grandma or watching a series with my dad or my mom, that reward was greater. And that reward was more important to me, even though I balanced them, right? Because there were some things that I didn't do each day. And there were some days where I had a very low score of how well I did with those habits. Yet, even though I had a low score of those habits, I had a very high score of being present with my family. And that was more important to me. So I think as 2025, right, we're underway here into 2025, right? And maybe you have some habits that you're trying to build. You have some new routines that you're working on. And you want to be really disciplined to those habits, and you want to be really disciplined to the new you. And I get it, right? And I encourage you to stay disciplined to that person. Yet at the same time, I also encourage you to remember what's really important to you. Like, why are you doing this, right? What's the reason or the end goal that you're trying to achieve here, even though there might be some things that push you off the course from time to time. And if those things are worth your time, then give it your time, right? I don't think being consistent and being disciplined is about having this ridiculously rigid life that doesn't allow you to be spontaneous and spend time with people that you love. I think that's actually part of the thrill of trying to be consistent and disciplined, is managing the spontaneity of life, is managing the nights that you and your buddies go out and maybe you say, you know what, maybe I do want to have some chicken wings tonight. Maybe I do want to have a piece of pizza. Now, I'm not saying you do that every time you go out with your buddies, but that's part of the game. That's part of the actual balance or the integration of, I live a consistent life, yet I also live a balanced life and an integrated life with the consistent, very focused, very disciplined DJ with also the spontaneous and more ever-flowing DJ. So I think that's a very, very important thing when it comes to the longevity that we have when it comes to being consistent and being disciplined, is we can't be too rigid. We can't try to be perfect because I think we're eventually just going to snap, right? And I've had moments of my life where I've had really long periods of just discipline and behavior. I actually remember kicking off 2024, I was listening to a ton of Alex Hormozi stuff and I was reading his books and I was listening to his podcast every day, and I got like violently locked in. And I remember not going out, not talking to friends for like 45 days. And I got a ton of stuff done and there were some great results to it. Yet it wasn't sustainable, at least for my ability, right? It wasn't sustainable for the long term, even though there was that, I think we have to have these seasons of our lives, right? Where it's like, hey, I might need to go into monk mode for 30 days, right? Or I might need to get into this season of just complete discipline when it comes to my diet, right? So guys, like, hey, don't ask me to go out Friday nights. Maybe that's part of your journey. And I get that. I've had those moments. Yet when it comes to the longevity of it, what's the real reason behind this, right? What's the real priority that you're trying to address here? So I think I realized that last week, and I realized it also in our Be That Guy consistency and discipline group, which is kind of like a test group that we're running right now with this calendar that we're using, and we're actually building 5 different habits over the course of 6 months. And it's something that eventually will be available to the public as kind of a consistency and discipline course to help you build these 5 habits, as well as any habits that you ever want to build in your life. And so I realized that in this group, because we were all talking about the challenges of Christmas, yet we all realized that the importance of actually being present and being with your family and friends and making those memories was more important than reading for 30 minutes a day, right? Or doing my morning gratitude. All right. So take that into consideration, right? When you find the ebbs and flows of being consistent, right? I talk all the time about, consistency is this wave. It's not this ray. And so that's kind of what I mean, where you're going to get knocked off course sometimes. I made this video and put it up on my Instagram, and I got a lot of really good engagement of basically a live example of me being pushed off my diet path because I ate 15 brownies and cookies and piece of pizza and all these unhealthy things that I would never eat living in Tampa and on my typical regimen, typical diet. But I ate them because it was my grandma's cookies, right? Or it was the food that my dad had gotten me. I was so excited and looking forward to having a drink with me in a slab of pizza, right? Little things like that where it's like, maybe the effect of this is actually more important than me not doing it, right? Because I think a lot of times I talk about, right, how the decisions you make directly impact your self-image, especially when it comes to your confidence and stacking up that evidence. Well, what about the decisions that I make that help me believe that I'm a better son, right? Or a better grandson, right? And to be completely honest, I'm still working on those, right? And I probably will always be working on those. I think that's part of the game of being consistent and being disciplined, is how can I manage the things that I want to do versus the things that are important to me, right? And managing both of those and integrating both of those together. So think about that idea as you kick off 2025. I hope everybody is off to a great start in 2025, and don't stop on your New Year's resolutions if you made them. I know I'm not a huge fan of New Year's resolutions, but keep moving forward with them. And until next time, keep doing hard things, both mentally and physically, and we'll talk to you guys soon. We'll see you.